A combustible cladding evacuation delayed. Let's have a look. Hello everyone, Florian.heise here, and welcome to another episode of HeiseSays. Grab your stein of coffee because we're going to talk about an article which has just appeared in news.com.au, sent to me by a viewer, about a delay in evacuating a building with combustible cladding. Okay, now, as much, and it's in St Kilda, it's in Victoria, as much as I hate just, being critical of Daniel Andrews because everyone loves him so much, let's look at this without going crazy right away. Let's pull this apart a little bit. Now, what we've been discussing for some time on this channel is just flammable cladding issues, and I'll bring up my channel here. We've got the hidden flammable cladding risk, wins for flammable cladding apartment owners, hidden flammable cladding in South Australia, flammable cladding and building certifications insurance. I mean, this has been an ongoing issue. It goes, right back to even some of the early government projects in the UK, where they had precast panel housing they put up, then they had water leaking, so then they cladded it all in aluminium composite cladding to make it look nice and protect it, and then it created disasters like Grenfell's. So, government's replacing it all, putting landlords before lives, so there's a whole lot of issues here. So we've been discussing it with some time. The polystyrene, polyurethane issue. So if you want to get a bit of an overview of it, check out the playlist I've done on the channel. So it's not a new issue. It's something that it's kind of dropped off the media a little bit because the outrage is gone and they're just working through them. But it's something that at least a year ago was another big construction issue. And it hasn't disappeared, guys. It's still in Victoria, particularly, and everywhere around the country. It's to do with the products that they're specified and how they're maintained. Now, another thing we have on the HeiseSays website is the construction map. Now, this is when what was happening. Some of the newspapers were leaking all of the addresses for buildings and places around Sydney that had undertaken a fire risk assessment. And you can see all the buildings here, and if one's been undertaken, if one's been completed, and what the recommendations are. Now, you can see this and get, oh no, mine doesn't have it, or it has done it, what's wrong, what's going to happen? You've got to understand, as a designer, as an engineer, we do risk assessments all the time. As a designer, we do it as part of our design process. This could be why I'm having such a hard time with the way the government is responding to this pandemic. How they're just simply shutting everything down. Where's the risk assessments been released? Where have the economic impact assessments been released? We can design a building that is completely safe, but it will cost a fortune. It'll look horrible. There are ways you mitigate risks. You design ways to mitigate risks rather than putting balustrades around a whole, roof structure for maintenance that's occurring at a rare time. You will put safety protocols in place and other things in place to deal with that. You kind of manage the risk. You want to, as a designer, you need to balance the potential risk of fatal injury to the cost of a project. That's what we're trained at and what we're used to doing. So that's kind of why I'm a bit surprised at our political leaders and our health leaders. You'd think health leaders would be experts in triaging, but do they ever actually consider the economic implications of what they do? Probably not, never do. So check this out too if you're interested, because a viewer managed to get this information. He chased them up for freedom of information, and they wouldn't release it, and it was all who would get it and who wouldn't get it. Because, some of these buildings, they may just have a little bit of cladding at the awning. That isn't really an issue. Maybe it's been identified and they're going to remove it over time. It's not a high risk, it could be a low risk. The biggest issues are, I would say, where, if we can see in this one here, in the cover image, is where you have a circumstance where the fire could spread from one fire compartment to another fire compartment using the flammable cladding, particularly where people are sleeping. That poses a much greater risk, because that's the danger there, and that's what happened. So, now one thing to also consider, and I've looked at this in another video, is the difference between polystyrene and polyurethane. Now, these are different extruded plastic products that are used to provide excellent insulation, and the polystyrene it's much more flammable than the polyurethane.
But you can still use it if you ensure that you've got like a thick render or protection over it, so it's not at risk of it's being protected. This is the thing. With these materials, depending on the circumstances that they're used, there's ways to mitigate and manage the risk. But also with that comes potentially some maintenance issues that if it's compromised, it could expose the risk. So it's a tough situation. Particularly if you're designing a building for a developer, are they going to care about the long-term maintenance implications? They'll put it in a book, it'll get put in a room, then the body corporate may miss it. Maybe I'm just too cynical about it. But check that out, guys, because that is... My argument to all of this is that we need public public understanding, and we need to make the public and the market aware of the implications of what they're buying and what they're getting, so that they can just demand, no, sorry, I'm not paying that much for that crappy flammable cladding. I'd rather you pay extra for this other product. Because, here's an example. Polystyrene and polyurethane, used in garage doors. Which one would you want? Which one couldn't you? It comes down to price often. And the other risk is, as an architect, you could specify a particular product, and then under design and construct procurement process, where the builder now is in charge of the whole project, and you'll, from the design stage to the construction stage, you'll put under them, they can just sub it out with an alternative product. Sometimes you don't even have a say in it. They can go to the developer, oh, I can get you this, it's just as good. Look, here's a piece of paper that says it's passed all these tests. Sure, the piece of paper came from China, but we'll trust it. That's a risk of that procurement process. That's why I'm a little critical of it, the design and construction, particularly for places where people have to sleep, apartment buildings and those type of things. And here's the other one. It's the aluminium composite panels. Now, they also present a flammable risk, depending on what's in the composite, or, with the honeycomb ones, what's in the adhesive. Often it can be the adhesive that's spreading the fire. Because with these buildings, you want to keep the fire contained in one compartment so you can evacuate the building and then come in and fight the fire in that one. Or you can contain it for long enough to get everyone out of the building. If it's spreading from one compartment to another, that just exacerbates the risk. And there's a whole science, there's fire engineers that work all of this out, and there's products and ways that we specify and install things into buildings to make sure it works. Rachel had a experience where she was working as a student back in the day, down in North New South Wales, and the way that they're working on an aged care facility, and the way that the plasterer had laid the plaster between one wall to another wouldn't actually work as a smoke wall. That was what it was required too. The certifier came and said, nope, you got to tear it all out. So the guy had to tear it all out, and he had to rebuild the wall. So when it works, it works. I think that was that architect tended to do mainly traditional procurement, where they still have the authority over the builder. So, and they've kind of built a reputation for that. So this is the thing. Even if you have this type of stuff on your building, it's not the end of the world, guys. It's not going to spontaneously catch on fire. If it's in an area, we've done it. We've actually done an assessment of a commercial building here in Brisbane where we identified all the places where this material could be. Based on point cloud scans, we measured it up and we looked at the area of it. Now, if you have it on a parapet, on a lower roof, just at the edge, if it catches on fire, where's it going to spread it? Probably maybe to the side. The main thing is you want to stop fire going up and down from one compartment to another. So it depends on where it is. It really dictates if it's going to be a significant risk or not. Remember, it comes back to this risk assessment. Now, there it wouldn't be a very high risk. Here, going between floors, yeah, that's terrifying. That's terrifying. But how do you know you didn't specify the correct one and an alternative was put in place? You don't know. This is all the issues that are going here. This is why we need a clerk of works. Clerk or clerk, I keep getting it wrong. Anyway, so let's have a look at this article and see what actually happened. And if the tenants, are justified in their concern or if it's a bit overblown. So, tenants' fury over combustible cladding evacuation order delay versus Kilda apartment building. Angry tenants are staring down the barrel of homelessness after being given little notice that they need to evacuate their Melbourne apartment. I mean, this article is just from yesterday. This seems like it's really out of date. Angry tenants staring down the barrel of homelessness after being ordered to leave their Bayside apartment say it took 4 days for anyone to notify them an evacuation order had been placed on the building. The St Kilda apartment block was branded uninhabitable last week due to the building's highly flammable cladding. Residents were ordered to evacuate their homes by May 21. The tenants, many of them renters, say the delay in notifying them of the emergency order to move out cost them valuable time in finding a new place to live. One couple who are trying to save to buy their own house are facing the prospect of couch surfing and relying on friends for a place to stay from Friday, as they've been unable to find a new rental. Now that seems odd. There's a lot of rentals available in Melbourne at the moment, particularly in the apartment stock, and they're getting cheaper. And that's changed in the last month. You know, it's another couple who are expecting their first child in 5 months will be forced to move into an Airbnb for 8 weeks and put all their furniture into storage while they wait for their new home to become available. And a woman 20 who moved into the building after her dad passed away has also been forced to find a new home for the second time in just 2 months. I mean, okay, I feel sorry for these people, but life happens. Okay, life happens, you've got to deal with it, everyone. So this is the emergency owner to the owner's corporation. So, the municipal building surveyor of the City of Port Phillip has been authorised to make an emergency order under Division 1, Part 8 of the Building Act. I caused the building to be inspected on the 23rd of April by the building surveyor. Pursuant to this section, I'm of the opinion that this order is necessary because of the danger to life or property arising from the condition of the building. Pursuant to this subsection 1.4, I'm of the opinion that the order is necessary to direct the owners to carry out building works or other works to make the building safe for occupants. Pursuant to now therefore take notice that pursuant to section 104, the owners and occupiers are required within 24 hours of the service of this order to secure a trained fire warden to be stationed at the premises to monitor the building and alert the occupants and the public in the event of emergency between the hours of 10 and 7 a.m. It's to do when people are sleeping. So, you know, why haven't they? Pursuant to subsection 104, the owners and occupiers are required within 14 days of the service of this order to evacuate and cease use of the building, prohibit entry into the building. So there you go, guys. So, Port Phillip Council ordered residents after deeming the building uninhabitable due to the unreasonable fire risk posed by its combustible cladding. Combustible expanded polystyrene panels, there you go. There you go. Polystyrene, not polyurethane, have been installed as the external cladding to the building. Wow. Now, the reason you have to do that, guys, you know why you have to put this shit on buildings? Well, one, it's cheap, but it meets your insulation requirements. The hippy-dippy greenies that want you to have you literally living in an insulated box to save the planet. It wins votes. Here in Queensland, we've got all these star energy ratings systems, so they want you to insulate the hell out of a house. It's just ludicrous. There you go. So it constitutes an undue risk of fire spread via the facade of the building, the council's municipal building surveyor said. Yeah, that's the problem. I mean, Rachel did her thesis. She called it The Towering Inferno. She's actually interviewed by ABC about her thesis. With regard and with it, she went through just the issues in fire safety, through the history of what happens is there's a disaster and a lot of people die, and then they bring in new construction rules. It's crazy, some of the things, like in New York, where they have these metal fire escapes attached to the outside of the building. They get so hot, people melt to them. That's what happened. Port Phillip Mayor Lewis Crawford said the building could not be lived in after May 21 and until the fire safety concerns were addressed. So Newswire chose not to identify the building, yet due to the residents' fears for their safety, as many are still living in the complex. Port Phillip Council issued the evacuation order to the owners' corporation on Friday, May 7, advising they had 2 weeks to leave the building. But the tenants living in the apartments, many of whom were unaware of the cladding issues when they started their lease. See, this is the problem. This is the problem because, well, the news don't want to talk about it. And if we look at stuff like this, you know, we couldn't... it's not being issued. Because people don't want people to know that their building may have a flammable cladding risk. Because you know what it'll affect? The valuation of the building. It'll affect the ability to get tenants in there. Everyone. This is one argument I would put for the blockchain. Honestly, certification and all the construction records and processes should all be stored and publicly available in the blockchain, so it can't be edited. All correspondence. Can you see that happening, guys? There's a project for you. It'd be a nightmare to do. I know there's some people trying to make it happen, but one woman, aged 35, said she should have been told as soon as the order was issued, so she could have used the weekend to look for a new rental. We don't get told anything, she said. You know, I needed to know that Friday so I could look on the weekend, secure something that weekend, and move last weekend. I'm a single female that has no family here. And I don't want to have to ask my friends to take a day off to do this. Well, why do your friends need to do that? I don't understand. To help you move? The woman who wished to remain anonymous said it was going to cost her $4,000 to move on such short notice. Luckily, she secured a new place and moves in on Tuesday. Why does it cost $4,000 to move? Like extra bond, maybe? I mean, how much does it cost to hire a truck? Just a couple $100. And you move it. Oh, wait a minute. Single female. Sorry, girls. You can't move the fridge yourself. Okay. I forgot. I'm so used to moving by, you know. Anyway. I'm a lucky one. I have a lot of friends. They offered to help me. I've had to borrow money off friends to pay another bond straight away, she said. I mean, why don't you have an emergency fund? People need this is the type of thing that an emergency fund is for. This is exactly what it's for. Are people living this bloody close to the edge, guys, that they can't even pull together $4,000? We still haven't had a letter in our letterbox to even say, do you know this is happening? So there's no note up anywhere. If they do this to another apartment, the council really needs to make sure every tenant is aware of what's going on and know they're living in an apartment that is actually high risk. So, well, this is what they've done. It's the body corporate's job. It's not the council's job to inform everyone. Someone at some point is going to fall short and end up homeless because there's not enough time. 2 weeks is too short. You know what's happened. You've probably got foreign investors that were informed of this and it didn't get passed on to the tenants. I bet you. You know, there's an email to someone over in Hong Kong that they just haven't gotten around to. The 20-year-old woman, who also had to shell out $4,000 to secure a new place so quickly, said the full 14-day notice would have been a great start. I'm feeling really disappointed and stressed because I just moved in 2 months ago and furnished. And my father just died 3 months ago, so moving the first time was really traumatic, and now I have to do it again, she said. The tenants have called for more time, at least a month's notice, and support packages to help them find accommodation, as most of them don't qualify for emergency housing, as they have steady employment and technically aren't homeless until at least Friday. What they need to do, there needs to be a way that they can manage the building. What if they have constant observation of it to give people more time to get out? If you have a fire warden on each floor, if you have someone inspecting outside, you're going to have to cop that cost. Because, you've got to realize it's been sitting there for all this time and it's not going to spontaneously catch on fire. The biggest issue is if some idiot smokes on a balcony and leaves a cigarette in a little Tupperware container or, an ice cream container and it caught fire. That's the thing. So you can manage the risks here. But they've deemed it too worrying. The government's come in and said it's too dangerous. So there's the thing. NewsWire understands the responsibility to inform the tenants of the evacuation order falls on the owner's corporation, not the council exactly. The building strata manager, Ben Harwood, would not address the timeframes when contacted by NewsWire, but said a fire safety engineering expert had been engaged to remediate the complex to try and make it habitable again. Basic Expert Managing Director Jonathan Barnett told NewsWire his team had come up with a plan for emergency works, which is understood was being presented to council on Monday afternoon, and if approved, could see residents able to stay in the building. This is the thing. They can find ways around this, guys. It's not the best solution. Oh, maybe they'll have to... How many of these buildings are they going to have to extend the sprinkler runs? What if you had wall-wetting sprinklers on the outside of these things? Is that what we're going to have to start doing? It's going to be interesting to see what's going on. There you go. I've got a colleague who's a fire engineer. I mean, it's a good business, guys. There's a lot of... I think he was frustrated, actually. He was saying he's just exhausted from doing nothing but fire cladding. So it'd be good money for him. You know, they'd be doing well right now. So, guys, what do you think? What's the solution or the lessons to take from this? Now, I would say we need to increase the public understanding of construction, the differences in the materials they're paying for. They need to understand that there's an inherent risk of substitutions and cheap things. And here's the thing. You can get cladding that's put in place. And the example is this one here. The tests for the aluminium composite claddings that were used to certify just weren't appropriate for it. So it all had to change. We'd have trade reps coming and telling us that, oh, well, no, that product doesn't comply. That's an issue. And it's a big mess. And as designers, we're not experts on this stuff. We just have to trust the information that's provided to us. So it really is a very messy and stressful situation. And if you depend on the government to come and provide you with the safety or the legislator, it's usually too late. They're reactionary, everyone. They come after the disaster. Like here, they've come after the cladding has already been put in place. You know, there needs to be more of a market understanding that, okay, if they pay a little bit extra for it, and I know they're expensive enough, they may get the better product. What do you reckon? Then we need to have people on there to observe it, to make sure the actual people get what they're paying for. I mean, it's a mess. It really is. I feel sorry for these people, and I hope a solution can be found to keep them in their homes. Maybe they just need to wall wet put sprinklers on the outside of the buildings. You know, you do it. Hopefully the building's already got a sprinkler tank in it, so you can just extend the existing runs. Will they have enough pressure to do that? It's a mess. It really, this whole sector is so stressful, everyone. So, anyway, thank you all for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. If you're a fan and enjoy the content I create here, there are a few ways you can support us. You can join us on YouTube or Patreon. You can support us by signing up to SelfWealth or Stake. SelfWealth, we each get 5 free share trades when you sign up. For Stake, when you fund your account, we get 1 free share. You can see the lottery spinning wheel going there. You can use our affiliate links at Amazon, eBay, Independent Reserve, or HeiseBroadband. Buy our merch from HeiseSays. Use Gold Pass from the Perth Mint, or support us via PayPal. Have a great day, everyone, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye for now.